Hello there! Welcome to episode 4 of this walkthrough creating an adventure from scratch in Foundry Virtual Tabletop. Last time we created a scene, this time we're going to create an encounter for the scene. So without further ado, let's fire up our game world, Strife and Grimbone walkthrough. You can see that we've got version 12 build 328, not had any problems so far from the previous version. We join as the game master as always. And we see the scene that we created last time. We have game paused and the animation of the water is paused. If we unpause, the animation starts. If we pause again and unpause, the animation stays on. We, of course, made some deliberate errors, which is traditional on this walkthrough, and I'll just fix them now. In our lighting of the brazier here, which I'll magnify and double click, of course the dim light should be brighter than the bright light, so I think we'll set dim light 40 and bright light 20 of this burning brazier. If we go to night time, when the lights will turn on, they'll go from across as it gets darker, and so it's lit our scene with shadows behind the tent. The other deliberate mistake was I think we should have the sound of the water penetrating a little further into the wharf, so I'll increase the distance over which we hear the sound to maybe 50. We have volume easing so it gets gradually quieter the further we go from the origin of the sound. Update that, and we don't need 3 anymore. Control C, Control V to copy and paste, and now we have the sounds that are going to be apparent when one crosses this threshold here rather than only almost upon the water itself. So to set the scene, we want to help the game master by creating some journal entries. We'll go into the Journal tab. Chapter 1 Pandaka, we've just dealt with the town hall, we dealt with the Gianna side quest, and we show that there. We're going to create a new event now, which we will call Eel Catch. And let's create our first page of that, which is going to be called Eel Catch. Surprisingly enough, we don't want to repeat the title. Save that. So let's add in some text. Quite a lot of text. And we'll start formatting this to our taste as we read, shall we? Just as the PCs leave the town hall, they hear an altercation taking place on the wharf. You step back outside into the fishy aroma of the market. Suddenly you hear a cry and the sounds of general disturbance and alarm. You spy commotion on the wharf across the market square. So we'll put that in our block quote. I have an underline before and an underline afterwards. Then we give some more information for the game master. Of course the PCs may choose to ignore this, and in that case skip this encounter, but one of the items of information they may learn later is that an electric eel had been accidentally caught in a fishing net, hidden among a load of fish, and had escaped. The fishermen and dockhands were eventually able to dispatch the serpent with long fishing harpoons, but not before it bit and electrocuted an innocent bystander. She has been taken to the temple of Erastil in a critical condition. The priestess may be able to save her. If only there had been some of the town's militia or a brave warrior on hand at the time. So again, we don't force the PCs into a railroaded adventure, but they learn at the same time that there are consequences to their actions or inactions. Then we have some messages for running in Foundry VTT. If the PCs approach, activate the eel catch scene. Well, we're not going to activate it, we'll just start the combat when we're ready, and drag the party sheet icon into the Actors tab to the east edge of the scene. Right-click the icon on the scene and select the Deposit PC Tokens icon. So what we'll do here is, I think we'll rewrite this. Drag the electric eel token onto the map. And drag the eel token onto the map just in front of the spilt barrel, and the party sheet onto the east edge of the map. Right the party sheet icon to spring the PC's tokens, and read the following. So we'll put this in our instructional block, save what we've done so far, and then we'll read to the players some more box text. Let's have our underline, so we'll create an underline there, but the underline C is in the wrong and within the secret text, so we'll just undo secret text, and then we'll have an underline in here. Actually, I've mentioned the eel token dragging twice, so why don't we just skip that? Drag the party sheet onto the east edge of the map. A wide circle of panicked fishermen and dockhands has formed on the wharf around a large barrel knocked over on its side. Oh, there, we'll bring it to daytime again, shall we? A large barrel knocked over on its side. Its contents, a load of slippery silvery fish strewn across the wooden decking. Twisting and turning in the middle of the fish pile, facing off against the surrounding crowd, is a bluish-green slimy serpent, or finless fish, about 4 feet long. Some of the crowd have grabbed long harpoons and are half-heartedly brandishing them at the serpent. Someone shouts, "'Tis an electric eel! Its merest touch is deadly!" Clearly no one seems willing or able to deal with the creature. And now, perhaps more properly, we'll have dragging the instruction to drag the eel token from the Actors tab or from the tab in this journal entry onto the scene in the square just in front of the barrel. There. The tent, stalls and tipped over barrel are impassable, or maybe jump up on top of a bull. The stalls are there, the tent is there. And other crates, barrels, sacks and pallets are difficult terrain, so this would be difficult terrain here and there. So the players have got a lot of tactical variation to get their teeth into in their first fight. It's not just a blank grid, is it? But what we need to do is to create something that Foundry VTT is going to understand. We need to create the electric eel. We could just try and drag things live from the compendium pack there, but the Game Master has a lot to do, so we'll try and make it easy for the Game Master by having a link here that they can drag and create the monster that they want to create. Another option would be to have the monster already on the scene and set it invisible, and then set it visible when you want the monster to appear. So what we need to do now is have an electric eel. We chose this, or I chose it, because I thought it's obviously germane to the environment. It's got an interesting form of damage and form of electricity, and there's some environmental hazard in terms of the slippery fish, and the wetness of the docks is going to create some splash damage from the PCs in this particular encounter. Perhaps the traditional encounter would be bugs in the basement for the player's first adventure, but I've gone for the eel on the dock instead. This is a level 1 creature, because we're assuming perhaps there are 4 player characters, therefore 1 level 1 enemy is a trivial encounter XP 40. But it's enough perhaps to provide a bit of risk to at least 1 player, or maybe more. Is that one high level creature gives a bit more of a swingy encounter, by which I mean there's more random variation. It could be easy or it could be tough. So it may require the players to use some healing or some other tactics. I think it's a little bit more apparent risk than having 3 giant rats, for example. So without further ado, an electric eel is a standard creature. We'll just look at that in the compendium pack. Because we have Pathfinder 2nd edition system, all this is going to be free and available to us thanks to Paizo's enlightened policy. And should we go for the remastered Monster Core version, I don't think there's going to be any different save. Perhaps it won't have an alignment. So we'll click it, and we see here electric eel, and we'll now import it. And having imported it, we've automatically switched from the compendium pack tab to the actors tab, and it's just appeared there as its own actor on its own. Why don't we create a folder for it to go in? And imaginatively, we'll call it the creatures folder. Might have it manual. So we've got a loot folder and a creatures folder. Actually, maybe we won't call it folder. Just creatures. And we'll drag this and put it into creatures. Now it appears inside creatures. Our loot doesn't seem to be inside loot, does it? Let's put it there where it belongs, loot. So now we have not just a compendium pack version, but our own module version, or our own game world version, I should say. But it's not looking very eel-like, is it? It's looking slightly generic. Let's have a picture. So if we click on the portrait, we can find a suitable picture. Now I've already uploaded something onto my folder into my modules on my hard drive. So if we go to Strike in Grimbone walkthrough module, remember the module that we created in the first episode, I have an images, scenes, sounds and now a tokens folder. Inside the tokens folder, oh, what do you know? An electric eel. So there's a picture of an electric eel. Now that's our portrait and it looks very nice. See, we've got some transparency there, and you see it there. We want a token as well, and the best way to create a token is to use an add-on module, which we'll load on now. So we just log out for now. And I want to activate this module, Tokenizer, by Mr. Primate. So what this module does is automatically create tokens and token borders for us. So we'll go back to our game world. So now I've shown you that we've downloaded Tokenizer by Mr. Primate, our simian friend. We need to activate the module as always. We'll go into Game Settings, Manage Modules, and these are the ones that we'd already activated. We now activate Tokenizer as well. Save that, reload the screen. Many modules have their own settings. We see those in Game Settings, Configure Settings, as well as we have the core settings and Pathfinder 2nd Edition system settings. We have Tokenizer now. There are 40 different settings, but we're only going to look at 2. The main one we want to change is that we want to change the default folder in which we store our assets, namely the tokens. We don't want to store the token information in some random Tokenizer folder that's on our hard drive or in the cloud. We want to store it in our module like we had the other assets. So as well as the portrait being stored in the module's assets, tokens subfolder, we want to store the actual tokens as well there, don't we? So we'll change the default directory. So data is the root, and we have modules, then assets, modules, Strife, in Grimbone, walkthrough module, assets, tokens, and we can check if that's correct by looking here, and we see data was our root, modules, Strifing Grimbone walkthrough module with hyphens, assets, tokens. Strifing Grimbone walkthrough module, assets, tokens. So that's good. The other thing I like to change is scrolling right down towards the bottom. I like to have this selected, the title bar link, so that I see a separate tab for the Tokenizer to switch it on when I'm in the character sheet. And I like to disable the avatar click. When I click on the portrait, I don't want it automatically to go into Tokenizer. Perhaps I want to change the portrait rather than go into Tokenizer. So I disable accessing Tokenizer by clicking on the portrait and enable it in its own tab. I'm happy with that, and I'll save the changes. So back to what we were doing. We had our electric eel, and we can click on that and change the picture, but what we want to do now is to go into Tokenizer, our new tab that has appeared, and we want to clear up all the ones we don't want. What I like to do is to select the picture. I don't want the version of the picture that's got non-transparent background. I like a transparent background. So we use the avatar image like that. I also don't like this frame. Let's pick a different frame. I think let's have a nautical frame, a nice blue one there for the creature. And get rid of that one. And we have the frame in front of the picture. We can swap the order like that. We have this unlocked, so that means that I can move the picture, shrink it down, expand it with the mouse wheel. That's maybe shrunken a little bit so we can see its shape there. And I'm happy with that, so we apply it. And because we'd set the default folder in which the Tokenizer items are saved, we don't need to worry about shifting the token picture, the WebP file, into the right folder. That's all we need to do for the electric eel. We go into our journal now, to eel catch, and this is where we were dragging the token, so let's edit it. And we'll drag the eel over to there and save. So after we've created the eel token and dragged it onto the map, there's some more messages for the GM. Give the PCs a moment to state what they want to do. They might blend back into the crowd, see above on ignoring the encounter. They might attack, or if there's a druid in the party or someone else with an enlightened attitude towards wild animals, they may wish to use wild empathy and make a diplomacy skill check to make a request of the eel. And here this is the way we automate this, as we've done in the other episodes. At check, it's a diplomacy check. The DC is 13. We're avoiding capital letters for the type and the name. It's a make a request kind of check, and we don't need any secret traits for this one. Perhaps to calm it down and make it slither back into the lake, they might grab a boarding pike or long spear from a fisherman to use as a suitable reach weapon. They might use the distraction to steal some coin from a market stall. But we won't have loot for the PCs to steal during the encounter, but I think we will have a boarding pike and a long spear. And we could select those from the compendium pack while in game, but it might be easier for a GM with lots of different things to do at once to have our items here, the links that we can drag onto the map or onto the player character sheets directly. So we want a boarding pike, and going to our trusty compendium pack, we have a boarding pike which we will import, and now it appears in the items, so we'll put that within Strife and Grimbone items. And we wanted a long spear, and drag that in as well. We'll drag our boarding pike onto the journal and our long spear. Save that. So now if we click on the boarding pike, we get a description, and we see that we have a martial weapon which has reach and the shove trait, which I'm going to say is equivalent to a reposition trait. So this might be quite handy for flicking, using the edge of the pike to flick the eel back into the lake. And we have a long spear as well, and this is a simple weapon, so anyone can pick this one up, and it's got reach as well. So say characters, you see what I did there, characters who don't have martial weapon proficiency can still keep their distance from this eel if they're worried about getting an electric jolt if they step too close. Then I write, once they have taken one of these or similar non-combat action, start the combat by selecting the PC tokens and the eel token, right-clicking and then clicking the toggle combat state icon. The eel will roll perception for initiative. It has +4 for perception. The PCs may roll perception for initiative, or depending on what the PCs had taken as their pre-combat action, they might roll stealth or possibly some other skill. When the combat starts, all the fishermen retreat and they leave the PCs to get on with it themselves. We're describing the combat now. The confused eel will fight to the death. So I like to have a bit more of a description of how characters or how the non-player characters will behave in a combat. As I said earlier, when one's writing a pen and paper module, one doesn't have the space to enlarge and digress too much, but we don't have that constraint here. We can give the GM some tips and advice which they may or may not wish to follow on how to run the encounter. The confused eel will fight to the death, selecting the closest and most threatening opponents. It will stay within the wet, fish-strewn squares. So around here. A PC may try an action to flick the eel into the water with a shove reposition attempt using a boarding pike or otherwise. And see, I've already automated the athletics check, which is quite a difficult DC 19. This is because the eel has a reflex save of 19, and that means it's a DC 19 athletics check. That one is going to have when we look at the editor here, that one is going to have the, where are we? The attack trait. I'm not sure if this is going to be automated, but it's just a little bit of a signal that it's going to take a multiple attack penalty if it's not the first attack that the PC has made. When the eel makes a tail strike, because of the wetness of the surroundings, whether it hits or misses, it deals damage. And this is the way we automate damage. At damage, a square bracket 1 is the amount of damage. Within another square bracket, electricity is the type of damage to the target, and all those in a 5-foot radius of the target who are standing on the wet boards, i.e. all the decking squares. So we go into here, if a target is there and there's another PC standing within 5 feet and they're on these wet boards, both the target and the PCs are going to get an electric jolt, whether the eel missed or hit with its tail lash. And we would click there, and we would see on the chat message that 1 damage has appeared. We would select the token, press the damage, and that token would receive the 1 electricity damage. So we can sometimes do these rolls in character sheets, but sometimes it's, as I've said, it's nice to have it on the journal if the Game Master has this open. And to get a nice flavourful description, especially since this might be the first combat for the PCs, might even be the first combat ever for the players, give a bit of flavour. The glistening blue tail lashes round at you, sending gobbets of slime flying in all directions. It smacks you on the side, a stinging blow. Not only does the slime slicken your clothes, but the moist fluid conducts an electric jolt that sends your muscles into agonizing spasms. Also, on the ground, on the squares where there are piles of fish, the ground is treacherously slippery. A move action that enters these squares is a balance action rather than a stride action, and that requires an acrobatics check, which I've automated here, a DC 15 acrobatics check. So when a player, or indeed an animal companion or someone, moves onto a square with fish, they have to make an acrobatics check. On a critical success, they move normally at full speed. On a success, they move as if through difficult terrain, where there's an extra 5-foot square movement cost per square. If they fail, they stop short and they may make no further moves that action. If they critically fail, not only do they stop short, but actually I said move no further, so I think what I'm saying is they stop in that square and their movement gets interrupted, they can't move further. And on a critical fail, not only do they move no further, but they fall prone for 1d6 bludgeoning damage. And you can see that I've automated the damage here. This is the editor. So at damage, 1d6 bludgeoning. See that I've done the 1d6 in brackets. That's perhaps not necessary, but when the expression for damage becomes a bit more complicated, like 1d6 plus 4, it can tend to go wrong if you don't enclose it in brackets. And you see it's round brackets and square brackets for the type of damage. While in a fish square, the PC is off guard because they're having to balance, unless perhaps they've got the steady balance skill feat. Unless the PC can step into difficult terrain, they cannot use step to move into a slippery square. The eel is unaffected by the slippery fish, being a slippery customer itself. So that's our encounter. We've created a creature for the encounter. We've done a portrait and a token. We've described what will happen in combat. We chose this encounter because it was level 1, so it's a bit swingy, but it means that the eel can be a significant threat and might alarm a PC who suddenly sees they get quite a lot of damage. And it's got some extra damage, a little bit of area effect damage with the tail lash, electricity, and there's hazards in the scene itself with the slippery boards, slippery fish, and the electrically conducting boards because they're so wet. So, oh, what's that? I hear you say, run a trial encounter. What are you doing? You're making a request. Are you using a diplomacy check? But knowing my extensive fan base of probably one individual, I suspect it's going to be a coerce rather than make a diplomacy request. So let's see. Well, a natural 3. That's if I was trying to resist using my will to resist your check, I think that I failed dismally. So you have your own way. My arm has been twisted. Let's run the encounter to see what happens. First thing I think we need to do is to add some add-on module goodies. We'll go into manage modules. So I like the Carousel Combat Tracker. This brings a carousel of the portraits up, a la very well known recently released computer role-playing game using the world's second oldest role-playing system after Brownstein, of course, though I'm not sure if Brownstein's represented in Foundry VTT. So let's have that. Dice So Nice, because we love dice. So Carousel Combat Tracker is courtesy of the Ripper, big content creator for Foundry VTT, for which we must thank him. Dice So Nice is almost ubiquitous, created by Simone and JDW, thanks to them. Dice Tray, remember I had to do a / R D20 to make a D20 roll. Why not just click a D20? So we have Dice Tray, that will appear down there. Now I'm going to add on some animations, and this is a huge list, Jules and Ben's animations. So this would be for spells and weapon slashing and attacking. And good news, the heroic Mr. Vaux, who I think deserves at least 3 hero points, has kindly, just in the last 2 or 3 days, updated the Pathfinder 2nd edition animation macros so that it doesn't require warp gate, which is defunct. It's updated now to version 12, and this is a way of automating those animations so that we can use it in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. So many thanks to him or her or them. We have Pathfinder 2nd Edition Elevation Ruler. This is if we want to, and this has some dependencies. In fact, we need to click this and its dependencies. So Pathfinder 2nd Edition Elevation Ruler will allow us to drag not only distances, but to see if it would take one action or two actions. It's color coded, so if a PC has 25 movement speed, there will be 25, the first 25 foot of movement will be one color, and then beyond that it will go to a different color to show that you're coming into a new action. It also has pathfinding, which is very appropriate for Pathfinder, and elevation as well. So I think it does a bit of Pythagoras to work out what the distance is according to perhaps moving upwards or downwards as well as horizontally. What else do we need for now? Some of these you see have been automatically done. I think that'll do us for now, won't it? So we'll save those module settings. And now we have a new shiny version of Foundry VTT. I don't think we need to change any of the default settings. I think what we need to do is waste no more time. But to have an encounter, not only do we need to have an antagonist, which I'll drag in here, our eel, but we need to have our protagonists. And I think Seal is far too good to be wasted on this encounter. She can go in their own place there. Why don't we have some beginner box iconics? So for all you Willow fans, let's have a Valoros. We've imported him in there, and you can see how useful the compendium pack is for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. For all you Siren Ray friends, let's have Kyra, whoops, not Vala, Kyra Ross. Kyra. There she is. Come on down, Kyra. Now, we had Kyra. Who completes Kyra? That would be Mauricio. Mauricio, you've been hired. Now, for all the, because we want diversity, and there's not enough beardy old men in playing Pathfinder, certainly not enough beardy old men player characters, not quite sure about the players. We need to have our friendly Ezran. You're invited cordially, Ezran. So Ezran, if we now we have the full diversity, we know now that people with long white beards aren't just for Christmas presents or for long boring plot exposition, they're also player characters in the form of Ezran. These people are no good unless they're in the party. Here they are. Now we have our party set up, and of course if we were playing a real game, we'd go into our game settings, we would use user management or different variation of this if you're on the Forge or some other server. We would go into user management, select some players, give them our link so they can join our game, and hope I haven't done anything wrong here. Give them a link to join our game, and then we can associate players with the characters, and the players would appear on there. So we have our party, we have our party sheet, which we will drag there, and like the instructions said, we'll right click there and spring them out into the world. We don't need the party thing anymore. So we'll say Valeros was there, Maurizio was there, and Kyra's there, and Ezran was there. So they'd come from the town centre, the town hall, and had wandered onto the wharf investigating the altercation. Let's go to our journal. Eel catch. So we drag the eel. Give the PCs a moment to state what they want to do. So Kyra sees the situation and she sees the eel in the distance. The fishermen are rushing past. One fisherman who's splattered and slimy and his hair's standing on air because he's been jolted with electricity, looks at Valeros and says, you look more capable than me, take this. And he thrusts a boarding pike in Valeros's hands. Valeros can choose to drop it and go for his sword and board to get the old slashing with the sword and the bludgeoning with the shield, because he has a shield boss. But he thinks, boarding pike, this is slightly off topic for an iconic, but let's go for it anyway. And so he accepts the boarding pike. Now Valeros, what do you have equipped? You seem to have equipped your shield, but you don't have anything else. Obviously you've been too busy chatting to mares and Giannas to be wielding your weapon, but that must change. Boarding pike needs to be held in two hands, and so now we no longer have the shield boss, and we can stow our shield. So New Valeros has a boarding pike, perhaps Pathfinder 3rd edition. This is going to be canon. Kyra says, why should we be fighting this eel? Maybe we should just push it into the lake. There's no need for violence. But nobody else is listening. She's obviously accompanied by 3 homicidal, or perhaps I should say eelicidal maniacs, who just basically have a thirst for combat. Valeros shouts, "Jellied eel for lunch!" and is just about ready to charge with his boarding pike. Maurizio is silent, a murderous gleam in her eye. She is in combat mode and nothing can dissuade her against it. Ezran sees the situation. My goodness, this eel is disrupting trade in this town, and this is of economic dire consequence. We must get rid of this. So we have them, and we'll select them. Let's check that they got their stuff equipped. Oh, Maurizio, why don't you hold your rapier in your right hand, and why don't you hold your dagger in your left hand? That's better. Kyra, you can hold your scimitar, and you still have a hand free. And Ezran, we're mainly going to be focusing on melee, and already he's focused on melee. He doesn't need any second asking. Perhaps he was using the staff as a walking aid though. We have all 4 characters selected, which we did by dragging, or we can make sure we do it by doing that. And we right click on any one of them and do that to toggle the combat state. Now the combat carousel has come up. If we didn't have combat carousel, the same would appear in the encounter tracker here, but I like to have it on the chat messages by default. I think we're ready to roll initiative. So the eel rolls. Remember it's +4. Oh, good initiative for the eel. 18 + 4, 22. So that's the 22 appearing for the eel. Now the player characters would roll their own initiative. Ezran here in no particular order. Ezrin is not very good on his initiative. I think he was distracted by calculating the economic cost of the fish fallen everywhere and the dock workers fleeing the scene. For now, Ezrin is going to be behind the electric eel. Who's next? Muriziel. Muriziel's having an average day. Kyra was totally distracted by the fact that everyone's ignoring her instructions to throw the eel gently back into the lake. And Valeros's belly's rumbling, wondering how he's going to do the eel for lunch, and he rolls an average check. So we got electric eel going first, and then the party here. We'll start the combat. We get a sound effect, and just to the right of, I like to call this Greenwich Mean Time, just to wind everyone from other countries up. And to the right of that is the electric eel who's going first, and then this is the order here. So, what's the eel going to do? Well, the eel is confused. What's it doing here on land? What are these strange bipedal creatures? What is going on? And it's floundering confused. Essentially, it's going to delay. So it'll delay a little bit. Now it's Muriziel's turn. Oh, it delayed after. I think it should have been Muriziel's turn. Let's go back. Muriziel's turn. What's Muriziel going to do? Well, Muriziel's a tactical rogue. She's thinking. Well, I could take 2 actions there and strike, but then is the eel going to strike me? Don't much like that. I think she's going to wait to see what the fighter does and focus on sneak attacking. So she delays too. After Valeros. After you, Valeros. Gentleman first. And the electric eel is now going to delay after Valeros. So it's Valeros's turn. Get him up. Valeros isn't going to delay. He sees lunch and he charges. So with our PF2e drag ruler, see, we can see our movement here. So in 25 feet he can get there. I don't know why it's doing that. I think we'll go 20 feet there and 5 feet there. And then we were going to go here. 25 feet would get us to the eel, but he's got a boarding pike. He doesn't need to worry about these slippery fish. He can just go there. So his second action, he comes short a little bit, and he uses the full reach of his boarding pike, his brand new weapon, targets the eel, and we shall see what the dice roll. Double click Valeros. On his actions, we now see, because he'd equipped it, our boarding pike is our weapon, +9 strike. We see our lovely animation. What do you expect? This is the way games always go with me. He's got a natural 20. This is going to be a short encounter. So a critical hit with a natural 20. So we roll critical. That's 1d10 +4. +4 for his strength. It's piercing with his boarding pike. This is doubled, 22 damage. So 22 there. We select the eel as the recipient of the damage. And the eel is dead in one go. There's a short encounter. But this divine intervention, God of the Eels, I think in this encounter only, will rescue the eel from certain death and do some instantaneous healing. And the eel lives to fight another day, or at least another 6 seconds. Valeros looks with consternation. He thought that he'd skewered the eel with one blow of his boarding pike, but somehow the eel wriggles free by a miracle and is still standing facing off against him. It's now the eel's turn. The eel doesn't have the reach of Valeros, but is happy to step there. By stepping is avoiding the reactor strike of Valeros. 2 actions left. Going to select Valeros as its target, and is going to strike. It's going to do a nice bite. It's never tasted Valeros before and wonders what it's like. Here we go. Strike with its jaws. Its teeth clamp over Valeros, but it just misses. The teeth snap a hair's breadth from Valeros's left ear, and Valeros lives to fight another 6 seconds, or perhaps another whole campaign. But the eel isn't finished. It's got its tail. Arcs of electricity shoot up and down the tail's length as it lashes out at its opponent. Because the tail is agile, it only uses the map -4 rather than map -5. Here we go. A tail lash. And that is a hit! So we've seen now that it's going to do damage, but it's also going to have other effects. Let's roll the damage first. 3 bludgeoning and 2 electricity damage. Select Valeros. I'm afraid you're taking 5 damage, Valeros. But Valeros, you need to make a fortitude save versus being stunned by the electricity. So Valeros is selected. It should be he who makes the save. We'll click there. Valeros, things are not going well. This divine intervention obviously had a lasting effect. He's critically failed. He's rolled an 8, but it was a natural 1, and we see on a critical failure the creature is stunned 3. Valeros is going to lose all his actions. Next turn, we right click on him, look at the status effects, and then these are usually in alphabetical order. So we go PQ, P, prone, quickened, sickened, slowed, stunned. Stunned 1. Wasn't even stunned 1, this is stunned 3. I think it'd be left click, we increase the value, 2 and a 3. So he's stunned 3, there's a little graphic there to illustrate it. He's going to miss all his actions next turn. Now, the eel had this special splash ability, didn't it? We'll go into our journal. Eel catch. When the eel makes a tail strike because of the wetness of the surroundings, whether it hits or misses, it hit. He critically failed. It deals 1 electricity damage to the target, and all those in a 5-foot radius of the target. So we click our 1 and select Valeros, and have another electricity damage. And there was no one else on the boards at the time because Meriziel had cleverly held back. That's the eel's turn. This is a significant foe. Meriziel, what are you going to be able to do? She has 30-foot movement speed. Her first action, see yellow, second action, first action is to get that far. And in her second action, she's going for it. She's not worried about slippery fish with her supernatural dexterity, so she's going to go there. The eel doesn't have attack of opportunity, or reactive strike we should say. She's going to go there. Let's make the check. if I had my full screen, I'd probably keep this in the corner of my screen. But I don't, because I'm recording. So where do we have this? You need to make a DC 15 acrobatics check. So we'll put it in the chat. And Mariziel's player is going to make the roll. You make sure she's selected. She is. Make the acrobatics check, Mariziel. There's no one better to do it in the party. A 7. A 14. She just failed. She just slipped at the last second. Her movement is stopped. Hang on, that's where she wanted to be anyway. She would be, I don't think she has steady balance. She would be flat-footed, but who cares about that? She's in a position to strike, and she does so. You're the target. She has her final action. She's going to try and lunge with her rapier while the eel is distracted by stunned Valeros. Is someone going to say that because Valeros is stunned, he can't be a candidate for flanking? Perhaps, perhaps not. So, where are you, Mariziel? Striking with your rapier. It was going to be a fail, but it's not a fail. The gods smile upon Mariziel. Congratulations from Kyra, who lends her inspiration. She's got a natural 20. She said, my combat is all natural 20s. Come play with me. This is a critical hit. Now, what you don't want to be is critically hit by a rapier. This rapier skewers the eel, and she now got an eel kebab sticking on the end of her blade. We roll critical here. Oh, what's happened? We've made a mistake. Take that back. We hadn't set off guard, had we? Off guard. Right. So now it's off guard. Well, it was an obvious critical anyway, because it was natural 20. We'll roll the damage again. Okay, this didn't happen. Forget that. Roll the critical damage again. Now we've got 1d6 for the rapier, plus 4 because she's a thief and she uses dexterity for damage as well as attack. She's got 1d6 precision damage because she's a sneaky thief and she's flanking, and then the 1d8 deadly, which isn't doubled for the rapier, 37 damage. So first time playing Pathfinder, first damage roll 37. This is not the world's second oldest role-playing game. This is Pathfinder 2nd edition. Don't do double twice, just do the damage for the eel. Make sure the eel is selected and the damage. The eel is destroyed, and this time even divine intervention isn't enough to save the creature. If we'd made a mistake, obviously I never make mistakes like getting off guard wrong. Do you see here the undo button? Then it'll undo the last damage that was dealt, and you can try it again. So that's the end of the combat. Kyra's looking a bit bemused, thinking that violence could have been avoided. Ezran is somewhat relieved that he didn't have to spend the effort to cast any spells and relearn them again. We had two characters not doing very much, but it's the first combat. I'm sure they'll have plenty of opportunities to shine later. We can end the combat now. And because we had loaded on the Pathfinder 2nd edition award XP, automatically when we end the combat, it had calculated that it was a trivial encounter because it knew it was a first level creature, and one first level creature versus first level players is 40 XP, because it's one, it's just a total of 40, and that counts as a trivial encounter. It automatically identified the 4 party members. We wouldn't normally uncheck one of those in Pathfinder 2nd edition. They all get the XP awards, even Kyra and Ezran for lending moral support. Click on the award, and on the card here we see that all the players will see that there has been 40 XP awarded to those 4 people, and if we click on Mirasil, 40 out of 1,000. Only 960 XP to go, Mirasil, and then you'll be second level. So that was our combat encounter. What happens after the fight? It's always nice to have a bit of a description of after the fight. So we'll go to our journal, eel catch again, down to the end of the page, we'll edit it, and then we'll add in what happens after the fight. So if you're a bit off-put, as I am now, by the continued sounds, just click someone at the end there. So we'll do our formatting. Heading 2. If the eel is killed, big if, everyone congratulates the PCs. Give the 40 XPs for a trivial first level encounter to each party member. Now, when determining NPC attitudes in Pandaka, roll a D11 flat check for each NPC encounter. So in Pathfinder 2nd edition, rather than rolling percentage dice, we just use our flat checks and things. So DC 11, so 50-50 chance for in each NPC encounter going forward with the people of Pandaka to see if they associate the PCs with the eel incident. Were they told? And perhaps they weren't told. And if successful, raise the attitude 1 level, generally from indifferent to friendly. But if the PCs help the eel to escape into the lake by using wild empathy, by flicking the eel into the water, or by some other means, for example using non-lethal attacks and then picking up the unconscious eel, presumably with the old marigolds on. If you're not familiar with marigolds, that's think rubber gloves, and throwing it into the lake. Give the same XP award, but the crowd grumbles and they're unhappy with the PCs. Clearly they did not have the same enlightened attitude towards nature as does that PC. When determining NPC attitudes in Pandaka, now the flat check, if they associate the PCs with the encounter, is 1 level lower. The PCs are now free to gather rumours, explore the town of Pandaka, and shop for items with the advance payment money provided for them. So that's what we'll do next time. This time, just to summarise, we did an encounter and you managed to persuade me or coerce me into running the encounter, and unsurprisingly it was a resounding victory for the players with lots of natural 20s. Thanks very much for listening, and hope to speak to you in the next episode. Bye.